In this video, we're going to transition from graphs and tables to summary statistics. So the last couple of videos, we've looked at ways to organize and display our data. Now we're going to look at ways to quantify characteristics of a numeric data set. And we're going to start with something called the mean. You've probably heard of this before. You might have called it an average. The mean is a measure of the center of a data set. It gives us an idea of where the middle of the data is. To find it, there's two calculations. The very first thing we're going to do is we're going to add all of the data values up. And once we've added all the data values, we're going to divide by the number of data values. So add the values, divide by how many there are. And I'm hoping that sounds familiar. That's the common definition of average for non-statisticians. In equation form, we get two different equations that represent these series of operations. One of them is going to be if we are looking at sample data. One of them is going to be if we are looking at population data. The way we calculate them is the same. Add them all up, divide by how many there are. The notation will be different. The symbol for sample mean is x bar, x with a bar over it. The symbol for a population mean is the Greek letter mu. It looks kind of like a curly M or a U with a tail in front. You'll notice a pattern in statistics that typically values that come from a sample are represented with English letters, and values that come from a population are represented with Greek letters. We're going to see that pattern all throughout this week. For both of these equations, I want to do the same set of operations. I want to add up all the data values and divide by how many there are. So I know my expression is going to be a fraction for the division. And first I need to tell people to add up all the data values. And the directions in math to do a series of additions, we use the symbol sigma. So that symbol sigma stands for a sum. It's telling you to add things up. In this case, we're adding up data values, and we represent data values with x. So the sum of the x's goes in the top of our fraction. The bottom, I want to divide by how many data values I have. For my sample, that's how many sample values I took. We're going to use the lowercase n to represent the number of sample data points, or our sample size. For population, it's a similar idea. I'm dividing by how many values I have. But now I interviewed everyone in the population. So we use capital N to represent population size. Again, you'll notice the symbols changed, but the structure of the equation is the same. Add the values, divide by how many there are. The reason we're getting picky about the difference between sample and population is some of the things we're going to calculate will have different formulas depending on whether they came from sample data or population data. So as you're reading homework problems or you see symbols used in the textbook, make note whether it's population or sample. Oftentimes, we're going to be looking at long lists or grouped data, like frequency tables, and we don't want to have to do this addition and division by hand. So we're going to have our calculator do it for us. On your TI-84, the very first thing you need to do is get your data in a list. And you do that by pressing the Stat button and then pressing Enter to select the Edit menu. And what that's going to do is it's going to take you to a screen that looks like a spreadsheet. It should have L1, L2, L3 along the top, and then it should have columns for data. You're going to enter your data into list 1 if it's just raw data. If it is grouped data, like in a frequency table, you're going to enter the midpoints in L1 and the frequencies in L2. So single list of ungrouped data, data is in L1. If it's grouped, midpoints in L1, frequency in L2. Once our data is in the calculator, I want it to tell it to calculate the mean. To do that, I'm going to press my Stat button again, and I'm going to use the sideways arrow to move over to the Calc menu, because I want to calculate something. And I'm going to choose the first option, 1var stats, which calculates a whole lot of things we're going to talk about this week. If you had raw data in list 1, you're going to make sure that the list prompt has L1. To do that, you're going to type second and then 1, and that'll pull up L1 on your screen. And your frequency list prompt should be blank. If you had grouped data from a frequency table, the list should be L1, that's where your midpoints were. Your frequency list should be L2, where you put your frequencies. Once those list names are up, you're going to go down to Calculate, and the very first thing that's going to come out of that 1var stats command is the mean, and it will be labeled X bar whether it was sample or population. They use this same symbol for both on the calculator because the calculator can't tell the difference. We're going to do one example of each. So I'm going to pull up these examples here. The first example is a list of raw data. So I'm going to pull up my calculator here, and it looks mostly like the one you're going to be using. It is a TI-84 emulator, but the prompts look a little bit different. So very first thing I do, I press Stat and then Enter, and I'm going to type that data into list 1. And it makes me nervous that I feel like I missed something somewhere. So let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12, 13, 14, 15. Ah, there we go. I shouldn't have a 29. That should have been a 2 and then a 9. So let's make that just a 2, and we'll go put the 9 all the way at the end. 9. There we go. Okay, so that should be all of our data. Slightly out of order. You'll notice the last data value is in box 20, and we had 20 data points. That's a good sign. I'm going to go to Stat again. I'm going to go over to my Calc menu, and I'm going to select option 1, 1var stats. And it prompts me for a list and a frequency list. It should default to L1 for your list. We're going to leave the frequency list blank, and then we're going to press Enter to run it. And on my screen, I need to scroll up a little bit, and I see that X bar is 5.6. So the mean of the data in that table, a measure of its center, is 5.6, which tells me there's a little bit more data closer to 10 than there is to 1. And that makes sense. I can see a whole bunch of 10s in that data. I only see 2 1s. So my data skews a little bit higher, a little top heavy. All right, we're going to do the same thing for number 2, except number 2, you'll notice, is in a frequency table. Process starts the same. We go stat, edit, but now I have to clear this data out. To do that, you go to the top of the list, so the list name's highlighted, and then you press clear, enter. Do not press delete. If you press delete, it's going to get rid of list 1, and then you're going to have to reset your list menu to get it to come back. So I'm going to enter my number of times in the shop in that first list. Notice that I'm just entering the values because this is not grouped data. I don't have any midpoints. I have one data value per row, so I don't have to worry about midpoints in this case. For list 2, I'm going to enter the frequency. And remember, the frequency tells me how many times that data value appears. So if I were to list out my raw data, I would have 7 zeros, 10 ones, 14 twos, and 9 threes in my list. To find the mean, we go stat, calc, 1var stats, and now I need to tell it that I have frequencies in L2, so second 2. And I'm going to run that command. And if I scroll up, I can see here that my mean is 1.625. And when I record it, I'm going to record it as 1.6. And the reason I do that is in statistics, when you're given raw data, when you calculate stuff with that raw data, you want to report it to one more decimal place than was in the original data. My original data was whole numbers. I'm going to round all of my calculated values to the 10th place. All right, if you have any questions on how to find the mean or in understanding calculator commands or symbols, feel free to drop by office hours or send me an email. Otherwise, I will see you in our next video.